What's up, Rawcast listeners? First episode back since our March hiatus. A lot of family events going on in March, so that's the time for us to settle it down. Uh, I have a guest here from back in the college days where we have a colorful history, so we already agreed that we are going to try to stay on point for this episode
As best we can.
as best we can because we do want to do a candid episode because it's just so much fun. And so our main topic, Mr. Spencer over here. First
Yep.
off, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm glad I can finally be on the show. I know you've asked me a lot, and life has kept getting in the way, so I'm glad I could be here.
You were one of the first, buddy. One of the first. But so here we come to an interesting topic of conversation that isn't our usual shenanigans. This coming Tuesday, April 5th, we're seeing the Wisconsin primaries. On the GOP side, as many of you know, we have Donald Trump, Ted Cruz, and John Kasich, and running for the Democratic nomination, Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders. Now, this has been just such an interesting campaign on both sides running for the nominations for each respective party. What are your thoughts so far overall, just looking at the overall scope of what we've seen this season?
At the overall scope, it's interesting because, from my perspective, considering I don't have cable television,
Neither do I.
and I think I don't have cable television. I don't listen to the radio a whole lot, so it's mostly what I see is in news. And word of mouth is mostly what I'm getting. So it's interesting getting that perspective on it. But mostly it just seems like one hell of a shit show.
To be blunt, yeah.
To be blunt, it's one hell of a shit show. I mean, I've seen meme after meme online of people like posting, and from other countries that they're just like pulling up to the couch with a bucket of popcorn, just like, holy crap, let's watch this play out.
It really has. Especially, I don't even know if the media is putting a spin on things as to make it seem more outrageous than it is, but you can tell they have an agenda. Obviously, MSNBC, with the more left-leaning media, wants Hillary Clinton.
Everybody has an agenda. And the media, I think more than I think I've ever seen in my whole life, is spinning this so hard. I think the spin doctors feel ashamed and want to change their name. But it's really, really interesting. And I think for me, it's really hard to watch. It's like sometimes I feel like I'm drowning when I watch the news. I'm like, no, don't do that. Why are we doing that?
Yeah. It does get to be frustrating, and that's why most of my news comes in writing. I read a lot of articles online, right. And I mean, honestly, though they're left-leaning, the Huffington Post is probably one of my favorites. It's very tough for me to stomach anything from Fox News because, I mean, I worked for a company where their motto was "Where employees love to work."
I can't watch Fox News, and I don't believe the single thing saying. And the reason being is because back in whenever the heck it was, I think it was 2008 when all the teachers were on strike and we had all the problems with Governor Walker.
That was not 2008. That was like 2000.
My sense of time is horrible. I'm trapped.
I think that was 2011.
Was that 11? Anyway, point being, I apologize, listeners.
I was in Madison for that.
I was not in Madison with that because I was actually in protest in Stevens Point. But my point being is I don't trust Fox News since then because I remember watching Fox News and they said that people
it
got violent and people were rioting in Madison and they showed a supposedly live video of that.
With
and
palm
there's palm trees in the background. And I'm like, nope, we're done here.
Yeah, for those of you that are unaware of the climate we have in Wisconsin, we're not exactly friendly to palm trees.
The only palm trees you see here are plastic.
But I remember that one too. It does get frustrating because even with Bernie Sanders, when he was starting to get some momentum, every article that was like Bernie Sanders won this caucus, it was a picture of Hillary Clinton that was coupled with the article.
I think for a while some people actually thought Hillary Clinton was Bernie Sanders just with a Scooby-Doo mask on. But I think I kind of want to tackle this one. Let's like one side at a time because each side you can spend. There's so much going on in each side of this whole thing, and
well, I'm sorry to say this to anybody that's backing Kasich, but right now, according to Fox Business, public policy polling, and Marquette Law School surveys, we are seeing Kasich down and out. There's no way he's going to have a great showing in Wisconsin. And with our delegate system, he stands a good chance to not get any.
I'll be quite honest. You know what I know about the guy? His name.
Yeah.
It's honestly, every time someone says his name, I feel like I'm going to like a family reunion, and he's like that guy you see, like, who is that? Oh, well, he's your second cousin, twice removed, third. It's like I have no idea who he is, what he stands for, and I don't really care.
Yeah, I mean, I think he is the most reasonable voice out of the candidates for the GOP.
No wonder I've never heard of him.
And that's basically it. So that leaves Ted Cruz and Donald Trump. And Ted Cruz, I can't even get into specifics on Ted Cruz because the man is using his religion as a spearhead for his campaign. I believe in the separation of church and state, and when he's trying to inject his religious beliefs into our public policy, that no, just don't.
See, that's not something you want to do either. And again, here's where I feel like I have my perspective, I think, is one that a lot of people are seeing that aren't like super into the politics. Is again, so I don't have the public television. I've only seen like a little bit here and there about the debates. I haven't personally watched them, mainly because if I wanted to watch something like that, I would just go watch pro wrestling. It's about the same level of content.
Well, what's interesting, I don't want to get too far off it because, yeah, with the Republican side, I tried watching some of the debates, and
it's awful.
Because I get it. You want to build a wall around Mexico or across the Mexican border. You want to make sure that we can continue to be the world police and lock out immigrants, and it's just terrible.
I've seen more mature conversations and arguments literally come from elementary students on a playground, it's frightening to me that these are people who have a legitimate chance of having access to nuclear weapons and military and in charge of our government and who gets to what rights and that they have a legitimate say in these things. And I wouldn't trust them to hold onto a Twinkie while I ran to the bathroom.
Yeah.
It's awful. And I said, and coming from the perspective of someone like myself who I haven't seen a whole lot, and because all I'm getting shoved in my face by the media is Donald Trump is ridiculous and Bernie Sanders, Hillary Clinton. So honestly, when you talk about Ted Cruz, the only thing I know about Ted Cruz is he's like that really unpopular guy that hangs out with the popular people that no one really likes, and he keeps in your face like, "Hey, I'm still here. Remember me? I'm still here. Hey, I'm relevant. What's up?"
That's kind of it.
I don't really know much about him until recently, very, very recently. Within the last couple of weeks, I started hearing more about him, and I think that's because most people finally kind of narrowed it down to just those two. So he's getting more screen time.
Yeah, well, and see, that's something that I kind of dislike about Cruz is he's actually taking the time to run anti-campaign ads or negative ads about Kasich, because right now Ted Cruz, I mean, with Marco Rubio dropping out after Florida, that kind of added some strength to the Cruz campaign, and right now Cruz is beating Trump by 10% in Wisconsin in the polls, and so with the way our delegate system works, basically if Ted Cruz gets a sweep in Wisconsin, that puts him back on the path of contention to convention, man.
Well, and I think that's why I've been hearing more about him lately. And honestly, I think most people, and I tend to vote Democratic, and we'll talk about that later. But if I had to vote Republican, like let's say the race down between Cruz and Trump.
Cruz and Crump.
It's an off day for me. If I had to vote between them, I'd pick Cruz every day for the simple reason that it's like picking between two diseases and one of them can be cured. I mean, it's going to suck, but you can cure that. And the other one, well, you might as well just go pick out a coffin.
Yeah, see, I don't know. I feel like Cruz is too much of a religious zealot. Yeah, and I'm not bashing religion. If you're a Christian, cool, good for you. Mm-hmm. But Ted Cruz is using Christianity as a banner for war,
and and it's horrible, because I'm Catholic myself, and I'm a relatively religious person, but I feel that religion has a very limited role in our government, and very, very limited.
Yeah,
and I think the only way you should apply religion to the government is in general ethics, not specific policies.
Yes.
And that's why, anyone who takes that kind of like more moderate view about it, I very much appreciate. It's anyone who, as I said, they stamp around, they argue, very religious standpoints, and that what makes it really hard for me, because these people are like the biggest hypocrites I've ever met. They sit there and I hear them say, they use their religion to talk about why we should cut down on like social programs, and they use, they talk about how we should go to war and all this, and I'm like, have you listened to a preacher or any sort of a priest, anybody? Have you ever read the Bible?
Yeah.
Because they sit there and they use religion as a reason to do all these things, and I'm like, but the number one message is to be kind, be loving, have charity, and I'm like, so these are the opposites of what you're doing. So how
like
can
with
you claim
welfare?
Exactly, you can't cut welfare and say I don't want to help the less fortunate, and then turn around and be like, I am very Christian.
Yeah.
You can't have both ways.
It
You
goes
really
against
can't.
the teachings of Jesus. It's sad when, like, I feel like I have a better understanding of Christianity than a lot of people out there that are bigots, or they contradict their religious teachings with their actual actions in life. And so, sum that all up, that is why I can't vote for Ted Cruz. He's a religious zealot, basically on a mission to martyrdom.
Right, but again, as I said, if I had to vote between Cruz and Trump, I would still vote for him, because I rather take a man who at least is trumping religion and trying to go about that, than versus a man who I think is awful in every single molecule of his being.
Yeah, I suppose there are those that say Cruz would be worse than Trump, but I feel like Trump just doesn't.
Right.
So that wraps it up with Cruz. You would vote for him over Trump, but realistically, because that's actually the last point. I was talking about how he's running anti-Kasich ads in Wisconsin, because he's basically trying to just leech the votes away from Kasich to help his numbers a little bit and then win Wisconsin.
Right, but it's ridiculous. It's like, I feel like it's like the Kasich's house is on fire, and the fire's almost out, and then he shows up the last minute with a bucket of water. It's like, what's the point?
Well, more like he shows up with a cup of gasoline at the last minute. Like, here, burn it faster.
True.
But so then, let's say Donald Trump.
Ugh, yes.
Of course, one thing that makes me like him less, not that I can really do that, but the fact that Sarah Palin is campaigning for him in Wisconsin.
See, I love that.
But the fact that now people think that, Sarah Palin is intelligent and relevant again.
No, that's not that. She's never been intelligent, and she has rarely been relevant.
But people take her seriously. I actually, one of my ex-girlfriends from way back in the day, I have a quote from her saying, "I love Sarah Palin. She is so intelligent." In there was sincerity in the voice.
I was told, actually, this only within the last week, somebody mentioned to me that she was coming to Wisconsin to try to get support for Trump, and the first thing that popped in my mind was, I wonder if she thinks she can see Canada from here.
I can see Russia
Wausau,
from my
I'm
house.
from Wausau. I was just wondering, does she think she can see Canada from down here, further down the state?
She wasn't able to fulfill her obligations after she got elected to be governor of Alaska. She resigned in her first term. She really has no political relevance or any substantial contributions to our society. I'm sorry. Her family keeps falling apart around her, and then America needs to be fixed. Make America great again.
She annoys me because I have no problem. I think there should be more female and women, women in general, politicians. I think that should be something that we should be striving for.
Absolutely.
But I think she's setting that back. And
Exactly.
that really bothers me in a lot of ways.
Sarah Palin and Michelle Bachmann both kind of just decrease the value of women in politics.
Right. And
we'll get into that a bit more with Hillary Clinton.
Yes, we will.
Because I do have a quote here from a campaign volunteer for the Clinton camp that I want to get into regarding her gender, and it is frustrating to me.
Right.
But to finish up with Trump...
I haven't even started on Trump.
Oh, my God. Not only is it ridiculous, excuse me.
Right.
I hope you guys went out there and looked up the video from last week tonight with John Oliver, where he spends 21 minutes talking about how Donald Trump is not a successful businessman so much as he is a shitty lifestyle choice.
I could honestly sit here for the next hour talking about all the negative things about Trump, and that's why I think I'll shorthand this partially. Yes, please go. Last week tonight, John Oliver, make Donald Trump again.
Oh, it was beautiful.
It was very well said, and I think the best part about John Oliver's take on it is that he didn't go after Trump in an overtly aggressive manner. And I think that's very good, because my biggest issue with this political race is that there's too much anger.
Yeah.
I think, even me, I really, really do not like Trump. And I have a very hard time understanding why people do. I mean, I do, and it bothers me in a lot of ways, but it's one of those things where it's just like, I think we need to focus less on being against each other and more on trying to make solutions by working with each other. And I don't think that's happening as much as it needs to.
Oh, exactly. The divide, the polarization in our society is greater than ever before, but that's because we do have the media-owned company. Like, the media is owned on either side, left versus right, and that's how it is. Everything's painted in black and white.
Pretty much.
And that, I'm sorry, but it goes back to South Park's. Let's choose a new mascot, and then they try to decide between a giant douche and a turd sandwich. Like, South Park nailed it on that one, and I know I've mentioned it on Rawcast before. But if you haven't already thought that Donald Trump is just a crazy clown, he's in more hot water now, because obviously you saw the comments he made about abortion, right?
I vaguely have heard some of it. I started to look it up. I lost track of time being able to do that. I would love to hear what he actually said, if you have that written down, or if you know it, because I really have only heard like that he made certain comments about it.
To paraphrase,
Go
he
ahead.
essentially believes that there should be some form of punishment for any woman that has an abortion.
No.
In my opinion, a lot of times it's punishment enough for a female to go through the process of abortion,
Right,
and deal with that strife.
And that's just, and
I've never heard anybody just like, it's like going to change your oil. Oh, gotta take my car and change my oil. Be like, oh, gotta pop off to the abortion clinic.
I think regardless of your stance on a person's stance, whether or not they believe abortion is correct, everyone has to acknowledge the fact that the decision is not easy. It is It is a very physical decision you have to make, because it's obviously dealing
And
with
very
her body.
emotional.
And as I said, it's very emotional, and it leaves both physical and emotional scars on the woman who goes through the process. And I honestly believe, for the most part, there's not enough women being able to get a legitimate government level say in this conversation.
And Last Week Tonight with John Oliver also covers that topic. But whether you're for or against abortion, I'm personally against abortion, but because that's not my choice to make for somebody else's life, I am pro-choice.
Right.
And
yeah.
I don't know. I mean,
I think everyone has the right to choose for themselves.
Exactly.
Is what I think. It's...
You can't spend your life trying to limit somebody else's rights. Right. That is where I see a big problem with the GOP. They do, whether it's for religious reasons, whatever it may be, and oftentimes it is religious reasons that people are against abortion, but they have to understand that, especially if you are a Christian, only God has the right to judge you, right?
I yes, but my problem is like I said earlier, I think people are bringing too much religion into politics.
Individual religious policy.
Because we are a nation of many religions. We are a nation of many...
What's up, Rawcast listeners? We are back after some unexpected technical difficulties. We were talking about how this is a nation of many religions, and then we got off onto a tangent while we were having our technical difficulties about our founding fathers, who are not so squeaky clean as history paints them.
Seriously, look it up. It's awesome. It's wonderful. It's amazing.
They were deeply flawed people.
With alcohol.
But so we're going to move to the topic back to Donald Trump.
Yes.
But how he got in trouble with, or he's having his campaign get a little hurt by his comments about Heidi Cruz, Ted Cruz's wife. And this is the third time I'm telling you.
Yes.
So Anderson Cooper called out Donald Trump in regards to his comments about Heidi Cruz or whatever it was that was going on Twitter. Donald said, well, he started it. Anderson Cooper says that is the response of a 5-year-old. And then Donald Trump gets off on this whole tangent where he rants about how America is sick of being too politically correct. But I highly suggest that people take a look and realize that whoever is going to be our next commander-in-chief should have some tact, have some respect for the office, and have respect for our world.
Completely agreed. It's one of those things, again, like I was trying to say before we had technical difficulties here. If you're the average, person walking on the street, you should have that level. You should know where the line is for tact and correctness. But at the same time, you should have some freedom to speak as you like, to say, things just a little bit off color, because that's your right. Again, within certain boundaries and respects of other people. I think we have gone a little too far in that respect. But when you get to that level, that yes, you are trying to become our commander-in-chief, you want to be president of the United States, sorry, that ship has sailed. You are literally, it's a part of applying to the job. You don't get to say what you want to say all the time. That's the job.
Yep.
If you want to apply for the job, you gotta act like you have the job. So no, you can't say what you want as president, because unfortunately, when you have that level of responsibility in our country, if you say every little thing that pops into your mind, like he seems to be only capable of, that's how wars start. That's how political problems with other countries start. That's how we mess up a country as a whole.
Exactly. When you have somebody given access codes to launch a nuclear strike, they should probably be a little more predictable, because I have not seen any hard specifics on any form of policy from the Trump camp. I mean, yeah, he wants to build a wall, but like what John Oliver discusses, Donald Trump thinks that his wealth, basically his personal value, depends on his feelings. That if he's feeling good about himself one day, he could be worth $8 million more or something. I'm sorry, that's not how that works. And he does. He just can read a crowd and then say whatever he wants. I mean, for a candidate to say I could go shoot somebody and not lose any votes, it's not presidential. That's somebody gloating about the fact that enough people are following him, and it's ridiculous.
I honestly, when I hear him talk and hear the ridiculous things he says, I feel like he's like some sort of like drunk uncle that's wandered into the living room, is trying to change a channel with the cat. You're just sitting there like, that's not how this works. That's not how any of this works.
Like, I get that your anger stems from where the GOP has gone as an establishment, but you don't want to throw in Heath Ledger's Joker into the mix.
Right.
Because some men just want to watch the world burn.
I think he's trying to turn I feel like if he would win, he would turn the presidential office into way less than it ever was. I mean, the man, I think he's honestly out to I think he wants to do, I started off, I think he wanted to do this just to see if he could. And now that seems like a possibility. Now I thinking he just wants to make it profitable for him. How can he turn this around and make it best for him? I honestly don't believe he has the best interest of anyone other than Donald Trump in his mind.
Yeah. He did have, there was a lady that was the head of a super PAC that supported Donald Trump, and she worked for the Trump campaign. She recently quit and put out this like expose on what working for Trump was like. She didn't meet him directly, but her employers told her that they just wanted to be able to have Donald be a safe second place guy and poll in the double digits. They didn't expect this phenomenon.
No,
but they are riding it so poorly. It's division that they're promoting, not uniting as a people.
Right.
Which I appreciate that these things have been happening that are kind of hurting his campaign. Like his campaign manager got arrested.
Yeah.
And so now there's a huge debate about whether or not he should fire said campaign manager. And then I don't know if you've been hearing it. I know you don't really listen to the radio. I listen to the radio while I'm at work, and I've been actually hearing anti-Trump ads. And it turns out there are super PACs out there. Their sole purpose is to run anti-Trump ads. I've
heard one. Because I don't drive very often. I walk to work, so I don't have a chance to listen to the radio very often. and usually when I do, the song I'm listening is over. It's like boop onto the next one. But I have in the last couple of days, I actually listened to a political ad, and the only political ad I've ever listened to on the radio right now was from Bernie Sanders.
Which they've been good.
Right. I mean,
he's not attacking anybody.
No, he's not slinging mud. He's just trying to. He just keeps writing a very positive message, and I'm very appreciative of that. But
which we'll cover that in a minute.
We will. We'll get back. We'll get right back on that. But looking at Trump, again, it's. I just have a hard time with the man. Everyone seems to be against him, and he just keeps doing well. And there's a YouTube person out there. I think his name's called Matt Pack. He does a series, believe it or not, called Game Theory, and he talked about politics in one of his ones. Normally he talks about video games, and he talks about in his video how Donald Trump is running his political campaign not like political campaign. That's why no one seems to know what to do with him. He's running it like a reality TV show.
Exactly.
And that's why I think he's doing well against everyone's expectations, because he's not running it like the typical campaign people have run historically up until now. He's running it like he's trying to win Big fucking Brother. And people
he's a demagogue.
Pretty much. And people are just like, oh, because he keeps all his slogans short. He panders to the people. He finger quotes here, people, owns himself, and people,
and a squeaky chair,
and very, very squeaky chair.
Quit moving.
I can't help it. I'm a wiggler when I get excited. And so people, I think, are really drawn to his candidness, but I think they're mistaking candidness for being an asshole.
Yeah.
There's a very distinct difference between speaking your mind and just being a jerk. And I think people are gravitated the wrong way. And of course, I think the biggest thing he has behind him, I think the biggest reason he's out there right now and he's causing such a problem that we're having, is he's running a campaign based entirely around pandering to fear.
Yep.
He is taking fears that the GOP has put in people's heads and has been hammering home for the last 20 years, and he is finally reaping the rewards of all of that, and now the GOP has to deal with that fact.
They have been building it up for years, and they didn't want him. Basically, they've been hiding their candy. They're basically pushing this off, and finally, somebody came along and stole it from them.
They made their bed, and instead of lying in it, they opened it up and like, crap, who's in my bed? Damn, it's Donald Trump.
Exactly. And I don't know. I might catch some flack for this on Facebook, but I don't care. Have you noticed that it seems like, obviously, poor people on the right are backing Trump, it seems, more often than not. But it very often seems that the lower education the person has, the more likely they are supporting Trump.
I've kind of seen that. I think, again, it's not necessarily the lower in the education. I think it's people who have the most reason to be afraid of something are the biggest supporters. I think it just appears that the people with lower education support Trump. But I think it's just anyone who has something precious to them that they have been told by the GOP over the years that people in other countries are going to take away from you. Those are the people that want to vote for him because they're scared. And I totally get that. When people are afraid, they do crazy, stupid shit.
Yep.
And right now, that crazy, stupid shit is Trump. He is literally the YOLO of our generation right now.
Oh, that's so bad.
He is the physical embodiment of crap. We only live once and we're terrified. Let's vote for this man. And that terrifies me. And I hate that phrase, just an FYI.
I hear you. Which, it's going to be interesting. I think Cruz is going to take Wisconsin this coming Tuesday, April 5th.
Vote.
Trump is obviously going to take second, and Kasich, I think, might drop out after Wisconsin. But then on the left, we've got Hillary Clinton. And I'm going to admit personal bias here. I'm in the Bernie camp.
I will admit it too. I'm pro Bernie. And I will tell you this right now. I was pro Bernie before I even know who Bernie Sanders was. Why? Because he wasn't Hillary Clinton.
And for me, I was watching The Daily Show years ago, and every now and then they would have the Independent from Vermont, and they would show a clip where Bernie was talking. I have had respect for Bernie Sanders since before he ever announced. Actually, my jaw dropped when he announced his candidacy because I was like, yes.
Dude, you're such a political hipster. I love it.
I
love Bernie before it was cool.
I would love to see a Sanders-Warren ticket. Come on now.
Right?
That would be like the 1-2 punch right there. But so let's start with Clinton on the Democratic side.
See, I've had issues with her since for years now. I didn't care for her when she ran against Obama, and I don't care for her now. And it's a really sad thing for me because I I was a kid when I was a little kid growing up. Bill was in the White House.
Yep.
I don't die.
It's a little dry in here.
Don't die. I remember everything going on when I was a kid with his scandals and whatnot, and it was like, I was a kid, whatever, didn't fully understand it. But Hillary Clinton has always rubbed me the wrong way. I've never really cared for her. She seems kind of cold, and again, it makes me sad because she is she's one of the largest women politicians out there, and I don't care for. I have no problem with a woman president, none. I would love to see a woman president. I think it'd be great. I just don't want her. So and I think and so again, I just wish there was a different woman running. That would be great. But she comes off, she flops back and forth on ideas and things. She's always, you never know where she actually stands on anything.
Well, there I would actually like to make 2 points.
Right.
I agree with what you were saying. Still dry, apparently. So basically, I was reading the Washington Post, came across an article where they quoted a Clinton volunteer. And she said, for those people looking for a revolution, all they have to do is vote for a woman, and we'll have a revolution. And that really left me unsettled.
Right.
And I'm going to say this in the most base way I can, without getting vulgar. But it should not come down to what type of genitalia you have. If you are going to just vote for a candidate because they have a vagina, that is no basis for a president.
No, and I think, by the way, just as a quick side note, we should also point that out to the GOP because I've heard they've had a measuring contest during one of their debates.
What?
Yeah, I didn't actually see it, but supposedly there was many jokes being thrown around about genitalia size at one of the debates.
Oh my!
I don't know how it turned into this, but exactly, you shouldn't vote for someone based on their genitalia. You should vote for them based on their ideas, their beliefs, and not just what they're saying right this very moment to you, but their entire track record of not, again, just what they said, but what they've done. Look at their voting and why they voted that way at the time. We live in this wonderful, magical age where we have these videos from the past that we can look at and we can view and we can remember what people said a lot easier. And people seem to forget this.
And that's where it seems to burn Clinton a lot, but people are not shaken by it. The same people that basically how people are with Trump, like, make America great again. The people that support Hillary Clinton are the same way. At one of the debates when Hillary Clinton was like, where was Bernie 20 years ago when I spoke out on healthcare reform?
Was he like standing
He
right
was
behind
literally right behind you. And that picture surfaced a few days or a day or two later. But Clinton has proved to be reactionary in her stance. It's like, well, what is your opinion on this particular issue? And she'll wait until the polls are done from the public opinion before she's like, yeah, that's what it is.
She's always a day late and dollar short to every single argument. I feel like she's one of those people that she's so worried, I think, about being prepared for every possible situation that she's going to be prepared for every situation. So by the time she pulls the correct paper out of her file of what to say in the situation, it's 2 days later and when she's like, shit. Yeah.
But still, people eat it up because the media on the left is following her as if she's going to be tossing them scraps.
God, I was watching, for the life of me, I cannot remember what frickin' news station this was on. I saw a clip of it online, and I feel really bad that I cannot remember where. But it was a discussion on just after Bernie Sanders had won Hawaii, Alaska, and Washington.
Okay.
Somebody had sat down with them. These anchors were talking about. Somebody had sat down with them in an interview, and they said, "You just won all these things," and they're like, "Yeah," and they're like, "So, when Hillary Clinton wins, are you going to vote for her?"
Yep.
And they're sitting there like, "Why are we treating him like such shit?" And I don't understand it. I mean, why do we have this magical assumption she's going to win? Yes, she is ahead, but why are we? There's enough delegates where he could easily win this election.
There are still over 2,000 delegates to be accounted for.
Somewhere around 45% of the delegates are unassigned. So why are we assuming she's going to win? I do not get the math on
because
this.
it's just shy of 300. He's because I'm sorry, but super delegates, that's stupid. We can't count that.
I don't count them. Every time I see the number, well, she has this many super delegates and he has that many super delegates. I'm like, is this the freaking Justice League? What is this shit?
It's like back in college where it's like, well, if I get an A on the next 4 assignments, I can pass the class.
Right? Or it's like, or it's like Thursday night and you got a class next morning. Like, if I have this many beers and this many shots and I have this much Tylenol and I drink that much water, I totally won't be hungover when I go to class. Let's do this.
Exactly. And so I think, especially within Wisconsin, Hillary's not doing the greatest. Bernie Sanders actually is edging Clinton by 4% in the polls right now. And I mean, that varies a little bit. But according to the Marquette Law School survey, again, among independents, which is a huge, because Wisconsin is kind of a swing state on that. We have a very diverse background, a very diverse community or culture as a whole as far as politics.
Right.
But among independents, Bernie Sanders is leading against Clinton 57 to 37%.
Well, of course, at the very least, people are sick of her shit. They're sick of everybody's shit, and they're just sitting there. Bernie Sanders is running the most amazing political campaign I've ever heard of.
Yeah.
Period. Not just the one I've ever seen in my lifetime. Not the only one I've ever paid attention.
But
literally one of the most interesting political races I've ever seen. Because the man literally is being ignored by everyone who shouldn't be ignoring you, and he's still kicking ass.
Exactly. And so one reason I do have to say this, MSNBC, of course, with their Clinton vision, is they're accounting Bernie's success so far in the Wisconsin polls leading up to the primary to the low black population in Wisconsin, because there are less than 7% of Wisconsin's population is African American.
And that's something, please, if you understand this, please help me. I don't understand why everyone is just like, black people love Hillary Clinton. I don't understand why. I really don't. I mean, I hear this all the time. I hear, like, they're all voting for her, and I'm just like, they're individual people, for one. So
I hate how they break it down.
Yeah, why are we lumping them together? They're individual people. I don't get why we have to break this down by race. But that's besides the point. My point is, why do they think why is this like such a love affair for her according to the news media? I've never understood that.
And yeah, so I mean that greatly upsets me that they just chalk it up to that, like, meh. But I mean, like we said, Clinton has been favored by the media from day one, still being supported by the media on the left. But part of why she's hurting in Wisconsin a little bit is because the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel has been critical of Hillary Clinton because they're interested in the transcripts from the speeches she gave on Wall Street for that $225,000 check. And she refuses to release said transcripts. And the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel actually says that they want those because they feel that somebody who's running for president should be as transparent as possible.
Exactly.
And if she wants to go ahead and deny her ties to Wall Street, well, she was a senator from the state in which Wall Street resides. And in addition to that, if she's giving private speeches to corporations on Wall Street, but we don't know what's going on, how do we know how deeply in bed she is with them?
That reminds me, of I'm a huge Lewis Black fan.
Absolutely.
Huge Lewis Black fan. And in one of his comedy albums, he mentions that through most of his life, you assume that the government and business has been in the bed together the whole time, but they always kept it hidden. It's not since, I think around, I think in the 90s, it started coming out when we were kids. It started coming out that big business and government are just stuck together like two big dogs, in a parking lot. And they don't care anymore. And it's one of those things that's basically what this is to me. They're trying to cover it up again. I'm like, no. You let that out. You let it out that, government businesses together. You can't just pretend that's not happening.
Exactly.
It's like an office Christmas party. We know you're sleeping with Janice. You can admit it. It's okay.
Honestly, that's one of the biggest hangups. A lot of progressives our age, the millennials, that I love that the right keeps crapping on the millennials, saying if you were born after 1980, you're a whiner. Your vision is skewed. You don't know what you're talking about. Blah blah. Vote Trump. You're gonna go ahead and crap on my plate and tell me to eat it? No thanks.
Well, you don't want to play to Trump?
It's so basically that the uncertainty behind Hillary Clinton's ties to Wall Street is what makes a lot of progressives, especially millennials, uneasy, because that's everything that Bernie Sanders represents.
Right.
That we believe in. That he's wanting to break up the big banks. He wants to close the tax loopholes. And whether we use that for universal education or universal health care, it needs to happen. We need to end Citizens United. Everything that he gives in his stump speech, I'm all for. But you want to go ahead and talk about her involvement with the oil industry. Oh my God. Did you see the clip of her getting up in somebody's face about how the Bernie Sanders campaign is lying about her taking money in the form of contributions from oil industry types? Excuse me.
Honestly, I haven't.
She snapped on the person.
Doesn't surprise me.
We do have to point out that it is illegal for a presidential campaign to take in contributions from private corporations. But the individuals represented are not the industry. But with the, was it 501c3 or 501c4, the super PACs, corporations can give money there, and that's private money. We can't see that. We're not able to be disclosed, or like we're not given the information. They're not giving full disclosure on who it is.
And I'm guessing, I'm assuming the Republicans are also like, hey, yeah, let's hear about that as well. Am I correct in that? Like they're also like trying to like go against pull it
kind of, but they're too busy scrapping amongst themselves right now
because they're saving
they're saving the anti-Hillary weapons for
later.
General,
right?
Because they're certain that Hillary's going to get it
because they have the same problems. I mean, if you look back at the 2000 election with Dick Cheney. He worked for Halliburton, big oil company.
And then Halliburton got the largest contract.
Well, they got the largest contract after the war. And not to mention, like, when he left Halliburton to go run with Bush for the presidency,
he had to move to another state.
He had moved to another state, and they gave him $35 million. They gave him $35 million. Thank you for being so great to our company. And then he went and ran for vice president and won. That's basically the same thing.
But yeah, so getting back to the oil funding part, sorry to... cut you off at what you're doing.
Absolutely fine. It's absolutely fine.
The thing is, it's kind of cute, really, how there's at least 1 degree of separation between Hillary Clinton and contributions to her campaign through oil industry-related companies or people. According to the Huffington Post and America Rising, nearly all of the lobbyists contributing to the Hillary Clinton campaign worked in fossil fuels.
Odd.
Very odd. Now, like we said, although it's illegal to take direct contributions from corporations through a super PAC, which Hillary Clinton has, that's shadow money. We don't know. For all we know, Exxon dumped millions into her account,
Right.
Now, the Clinton Foundation, though separate from Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign, millions of dollars went to the Clinton Foundation through the oil industry, fossil fuels, once again. And in addition to that, Hillary Clinton owns shares. This is personal. She personally owns shares of mutual funds that invest in fossil fuels. So notice that in her personal life, she's working with these people, whether it be through the Clinton Foundation or owning her investments that are possibly contribute to good dividends from the oil industry.
Right.
So in almost every way, in her business dealings in personal life, she is tied up with big oil.
It seems like a huge conflict of interest to me.
So how, I just can't wrap my head around it. How she can be involved with all this, but because she's not taking personal contributions directly to her campaign, she's somehow above all that? People can't just look at show me the money. Where's the money coming from? And so there are these ties, and to me, that's not just like trying to overreach. Mm-hmm. That's a fact.
Right. It's like it's like you got 3 people in line. She says, the guy next to her, hey, can I borrow $1? And he's like, sure. Turns next to me, hey, can I borrow $1? Sure. That person hands him $1, then he hands it to her. It's got that one guy just handing money back and forth who actually has no point in being there.
Exactly. And so that makes me feel uneasy. If she wants to she cares about the environment so much that we need to move towards greener energy efforts, but yet she's going to be like wheeling and dealing with the oil industry in her
Right.
personal life. That shows me that she's fake. It goes back to the reactionary and stance thing. I truly believe from the bottom of my person that Hillary Clinton has moved left as a result of Bernie Sanders being a contender.
Right. She time warped that and just took a step to the left.
Like, oh, Bernie said that we need to do this. Well, I need to do it too, but a little bit differently, and I have to say it much louder.
Exactly. And I know it shouldn't bear a huge, weight on a political race, but I knew when I was around 15, 16. I think that's when I heard this. I think I was around 15 or 16 years old when I heard this, and that was the moment I realized I could never trust this woman in my life. And that is when I heard, and again, this shouldn't play a huge point in politics, but it does for me. That she, honest to God, believes video games make people violent, and violent video games should be banned. When I was 16, I heard that. I'm like, nope, can't trust her.
Well, not to mention that she was all for NAFTA. She was all for the repeal of the Glass-Steagall Act. Yeah. When she was Secretary of State, the last two examples, she was First Lady. But as Secretary of State, what she did was support the TPP. And for those of you that don't know, that's the Trans-Pacific Partnership. It's a large trade deal that involves Southeast Asia. Take a look at it. Do your homework. We're not here to spoon feed you.
It is not TPS reports. Please do not look up TPS reports.
Yeah, wrong thing. But TPP essentially allows jobs to be shipped overseas, which aren't we supposed to be keeping more jobs here? But the main point of that is once Bernie was like, yeah, you know what? I was against this the whole time. And public opinion was like, yeah, that's bad. We don't want that. Hillary Clinton changed her mind. You shouldn't have to, by this point in her life, she shouldn't still be learning lessons on what her opinions should be.
Granted, I completely agree. And, that's all this together just to me says, you can't, because you can't know where she is. And I don't think she knows where she is until she reads the newspapers, or the oil people tell her to.
She's a centrist.
She is. She says whatever she needs to say to keep the plates spinning on the poles.
Yeah.
That's her. And you know what? Fine. I respect the fact that she's trying to keep a balance. I respect the fact that she wouldn't do a terrible job at the job, but she wouldn't take us forward.
It would be kicking the can down the road.
Exactly. And if she gets elected, she'll kick the can down the road. She won't upset the status quo. She's basically just going to be, placeholder president if she becomes one. And you know what? If she ends up winning the primary, I hope she doesn't. I hope Bernie wins. But if she ends up winning, that's why I'd vote for her, because she's better than anything Republicans can throw out there. And again, I don't feel like she would be detrimental to the country. I just don't think she would do anything to help the country.
Exactly. That's where I'm at too, because I am a little uneasy. If anything, because she is a centrist, I think things would get a little bit better for business. Not much better or worse for the everyday person like us.
I feel it'd be a lot like having George Bush back. Is kind of the feeling I get it from her. I feel like it'd just be, another 4 years of George W. Bush.
Yeah.
Is kind of how I feel.
Despite the fact that people should remember that Hillary Clinton voted for the war in Iraq. And if you still think that the war in Iraq was worthwhile, I'm sorry.
That's a lot of issues in and of itself.
Exactly. But, those are a lot of reasons why we don't really trust Hillary Clinton. And I'm sorry, again, I'm not going to vote for her just because she's a woman. I wanted Elizabeth Warren to throw her hat in the ring until Bernie Sanders announced.
I completely understand. As I said earlier, I have no problems with a woman president. I'd love to see a woman president. I think that would be fascinating to see how a woman versus a man would run the country. And I think it would be fascinating because everyone would realize that she'd run it the same, because there's no magical difference between men and women in how they would run a country. They would run it the same.
Exactly.
I don't see why people would think that a woman politician is going to be like this magical thing that's going to do something differently. No, she's going to run it like a politician. She's going to run it like a person, because that's what they are. It's this magical idea that's very progressive, it seems.
Yeah.
Which is why, again, I would love to see a woman president, just to shut people up.
Essentially. I could agree with that. When I look at who I'm going to support as candidate for president, it's gender neutral. I do not play that in to. I don't take it into play. I don't think about it because it doesn't matter. People are people. You gotta blur the lines. You have to blur them to the point we don't see the lines. That's what actually separately categorizes us into these little segments where we're like, we need equality. Well, then stop looking at what makes us different. Stop it. Just be cool. Relax. Love each other.
Just chill,
Peace.
man. Just chill.
That's like the whole purpose or point of Bernie Sanders' campaign is let's fix where there's huge problems and get back to where we can just live our lives and try to be as happy as possible. Because actually, whether or not Sanders wins the nomination, if he loses the nomination, he still wins because he woke something up in the bellies of the progressives and the millennials.
Oh, yeah.
He is the leader of a political revolution. We might even see the emergence of a third party out of this.
You know, and I've seen people online talking about how this is the best time in U.S. political history in like 100-some years for an independent. I mean, independents haven't really done anything worthwhile since the 1800s, from my understanding.
You look at Gary Johnson, who runs for president. You know, he ran in 2012 and everything. They were excited that he got 5% of the popular vote.
Right. I mean, I remember as a kid growing up hearing about Ralph Nader and just thinking of him as the Energizer Bunny. He just keeps going.
Yeah.
You know, bless his little green heart.
But so that realistically, we might see it where the progressives reinstate themselves as an independent party.
And I think that could be
not even reinstates, but just becomes an entity.
And that both makes me happy and worried at the same time. Happy because I'd love to see more policies going into our country on a national level that I think will do legitimate good, that will work away from the greed and the fear mongering that I think has kind of taken us down the wrong path.
Which reminds me,
yes,
Rawcast Facebook page, we did post a video that was basically pro Bernie and included a speech from Charlie Chaplin. I highly suggest you go to the Facebook page of Rawcast AD and watch that video along with the speech.
Please do. Honest God is my favorite speech of all time. It's from, I think it's called The Little Dictator was the name of the movie that the speech is from. It came out in 1930s prior to World War II. It is a wonderful speech about how greed in the hearts of men will ruin everything. And I think that's something that the progressives need to push forward. And I think that's really great that we're doing that. My worry, though, is as the independents, as I was saying, is that they'll pull votes away from the Democratic Party, weakening the two enough for the GOP to just waltz in. That is my fear.
But if there is going to be a time to reshape things, now is that time.
If you're going to take the shot, might as well do it now. I mean, that's really what it feels like.
Because with the stranglehold that the Tea Party types have had on the Republican side, they're a mess.
Do people still talk about them? You're the first person I've heard say the phrase Tea Party in like 3 years.
Because they have become the establishment.
Oh, okay.
And so there's a constant rock'em sock'em robots effort going on there. But in every state so far, in the primaries or caucuses, where there is high voter turnout on the Democratic side, it has gone to Sanders. So Wisconsin, Tuesday, April 5th, coming up, we need everybody to go to the polls. It is important. Your vote matters on this.
Seriously, was it like 2/3 of all people do not vote? What is up with that? You can't sit there and say, "Oh, my vote doesn't count," when you're 2/3 of the people of the eligible voters.
Yep.
Of course your vote counts. Go out there and do it. I mean, it doesn't take that long. I mean, in reality. Hopefully, unless you have some like god-awful polling place.
Like Arizona. There was one county in Arizona, which is more Republican efforts there to diminish voters' rights, that people had to wait in line for over 5 hours to cast their vote.
It's insanity. You know what really bothers me the most, about this whole process is that we tout ourselves as this big democratic country, right?
Yep.
India's more democratic than we are. Seriously,
absolutely.
India's far. Everybody votes in India. They have, I don't know where in India. I apologize, listeners. But there's a place in India, I was told, I read an article, where they're in that district, that voting district, one person lives there. And the government literally comes in, sets up a polling place to see whether he shows up.
Special districts.
Special for him to see whether he shows up.
That happens here.
I mean, literally, he's the only guy who lives there, and because he's out in like the middle of nowhere or something. And so they honestly show up, set up a polling place. If he shows, he shows. They don't. They pack up and leave. But the point is, he has the right to vote in his district, and he's literally the only one who lives there.
Sorry. I like skewed the thought into special districts.
Especially, it's legitimate.
But they make sure that one guy
has the right to vote. He doesn't have to because he's the only one who lives in that technical district. And I'm like, and why don't we have that level of dedication to making sure people vote? You know, we're making it harder for people to vote, and at the same time turn around saying how we're such a great democratic nation. That makes no sense.
And people claim voter fraud as the reasoning for having these like voter ID laws and everything that actually helps decrease the chances, or pushes people out, makes it more of an exclusive thing to vote. And it is really, really, really messed up.
I work with fraud. My job is literally to prevent credit card fraud, and I deal with fraud all day long. I'll tell you right now, voter fraud, not a problem.
It's really
so
not
minimal. It is so freaking minimal.
Do you know where the voter fraud comes from? The real voter fraud is with the programs we're voting on. We actually had people who helped write programs for voting commissions that testified in front of Congress saying that they were ordered to create a program that would flip the vote 51-49 to whichever candidate you so choose. The fraud is coming from the top, the people that are already in power, not from us wanting to go cast a ballot. Because do you really think there's people out there that want to go vote 20 times in different districts?
Shit, you can't get him to go vote once. How are you supposed to go get him to do it 20 times?
Boom. But even if there is one instance in one presidential election, that's not going to make or break anything.
Right? And I think I think you're exactly right. It comes from the top. I saw it was on, I swear we're not told to say this by John Oliver. We're not, officially with him. But again, on John Oliver's show last week today, he does not sponsor the show. That politicians are the one who commit voting fraud, because there's videos of the politician votes. They have low buttons at their station.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. They press their voting button, and then they'll go and they'll vote for people who aren't there. They'll press their buttons, casting votes in their name. That's voting fraud. And they showed, I love it, this one fat guy, fat politician guy sitting in his chair. He has a special stick. That's right, folks. He has a special stick he keeps so he can press the buttons from without having to get up. That is like America in that should be like a Warhol picture right there. Just a fat politician like pressing other people's buttons with a stick.
It's ridiculous. And look that clip up if you can. Because the real voter fraud, with the elections commissions and with politicians that are casting votes in office right away. We're holding a vote on the floor. Well, if you hit 8 buttons, you have voted 8 times, that's voter fraud. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry.
You hit more than 2 buttons, it's voter fraud. The number of buttons only matters if it's greater than 1. If it's greater than 1, it's voter fraud.
Exactly. And so, we wanted to analyze it more so from each candidate,
right,
rather than just get so into Bernie Sanders. But it warms my heart to hear this. But Bernie Sanders has accounted for 63% of all the social media conversation in the week leading up to the Wisconsin Democratic primary.
Exactly. He's actually, I have friends that are there. He's actually speaking right now in Wausau at the Grand.
Is he?
Yeah, he's actually at the Grand.
I didn't even hear about that event.
He's at the Grand right now.
Why didn't you tell me? We should be there.
Dude, I wasn't going to wait for 4 hours in line. I'm already knowing I'm voting for him. What do I got to go hear him speak for?
I wanted to lick his shoes. No,
I really don't want to stay in the cold for 4 hours for a guy I already know I'm voting for. I can watch videos. Thank you.
I'm totally kidding about licking his shoes. But yeah, I agree with you. That's why I wasn't able to... I don't need to go hear him speak, even though it would be great.
Someone who's not sure what they're going to do take my spot. I know I'm voting for somebody who doesn't know whether or not they lean. Let them go hear him speak.
Exactly. And so, we know we're voting for Sanders. We already talked about why we dislike the other candidates. But the main topic, the last topic really, that I want to cover is how truly important it is for everybody, regardless of who you're voting for, to get out this Tuesday and vote in the primary if you have not already voted early.
True. Again, I don't want, I want Bernie to win. I don't want Hillary to win. I don't want Trump to win. I don't want Cruz. I don't want anybody to win besides Bernie. But the point is, yes, regardless of my beliefs, you should go out there and vote, because it's really important. that everyone does. It's one of those things where a person can't sit at home and complain about the establishment and not take part in that establishment. You sit there, you're listening to this on
pouting in a corner,
whatever medium you're listening to this on. I don't know if you have it on your phone, your computer, however you're hearing my voice right now. The point is, you're sitting there probably most likely thinking to yourself, my vote doesn't count, and I'm going to be, or even if you do think it counts, you're like, it's such a small voice. It's such a large establishment. The point is, the establishment can't exist without your vote. And if it is the way you want it anyway.
That's the foundation.
It's going to exist either way.
Democracy.
It's going to exist either way. The government's going to be there either way. The point is, do you want a legitimate say in it?
Exactly.
Because if you don't go out and vote, if you don't raise your voice, there's going to be problems. And we live in this magical age where I'm literally sitting in, here with Doug at a table talking to you wherever you are. This recording will be on the internet for freaking ever, and people can hear me spouting bullshit. And that's the whole point of this amazing generation we live in. I can sit here, I can say my political beliefs, and you can hear me, and maybe, just maybe, I'll change your mind about something, or I'll make you think about something in a way you never did before. That's change, people. That's just as important as voting. The fact is, you as an individual, we as an individual, have the largest voice in human history. We're not serfs with a king somewhere where their loudest voice is, "Hey, stop whipping me." You can go out there and you can create YouTube videos, you can create blogs, you can have podcasts, and you can get your ideas out there. And for some people, they don't have the time for that. I get that. I'm busy as hell. But what you do have time for? To vote. Why? Because the government gives you time to do that. You literally have the legal right to tell your boss, "Hey, April 5th, I'm going to go vote. Peace." And they have to let you do it.
Absolutely. It is extremely important because though, yes, people go, well, it's the Electoral College that decides who the president is. But we get to decide the local, county, and state officials, and that's where the importance really is. But especially in a primary or caucus, your voice helps determine who will be that nominee for the presidency. We get to decide who we want to run to be our candidate. So get out there, get informed. Today, I actually spent a couple hours informing people on how to vote. That, yes, Wisconsin has same-day registration. You can go ahead, get registered, and then vote right away. I was helping people look up where their polling places are for this coming Tuesday. And, I mean, yeah, I'd love to hear, okay, I'm voting for Bernie, whatever. But I talked to a couple that they didn't want to disclose who they were voting for because they feel like that's a private issue. Good for them, as long as I know they're voting. And realistically, yeah, we want more Bernie Sanders people out there. Let's get it. Let's feel the burn. We need this change. Yes, Sanders won't be able to tackle everything if he gets to be president.
If he does half, it's amazing.
If he does a tenth, it's going to be incredible. But so we, two millennials who are college educated and struggling to get by, would gladly pay some more in taxes if we had to. But Bernie Sanders' healthcare plan tax plan only affects people that are making six figures or more. So we wouldn't, but I would gladly pay more in taxes if it meant that both of us could have health care. That my children someday can go to school without having the burden of debt that I'm currently stuck with. Now, yeah, I chose to go to school. That's a completely different issue. So we're going to close it out. Spencer, thank you for joining me to talk about this.
Awesome to be here.
Like we said, currently Cruz is beating Trump by 10% in the lead up to the Tuesday Wisconsin primary. And Bernie has an edge on Clinton by 4 points, depending on which poll you're looking for, but it's within the margin of error. So Bernie supporters, let's get out there this Tuesday, April 5th in Wisconsin, and feel the burn. This is Rawcast AD, Doug and Spencer signing off.